Alright, so Wizard and Glass, by far one of my favorite books of the Dark Tower series, and just about one of my favorite Stephen King books, period. Um, this really, to me, is also going to be one of my favorite books, period, not just by him. Um, he did so much right with this book. There is nothing that I can complain about with it. Um, his He picks up right where we left off at the end of the Wastelands, with Roland and the Cadet being stuck on Blaine the Mono as they're heading on a collision course with Death in Kansas City. And as they're passing over the Wastelands at some points, we get slight explorations into a lot of desolate parts of Midworld. But also, we have some really funny stuff happen on the train with the way that Blaine the Mono was defeated in the riddle competition. Namely because of Eddie. And that term being that they didn't agree with the quality of riddles that they were supposed to ask Blaine the Mono, but I should perhaps elaborate on that a little bit further before I get into it. The the challenge for the Cadet was sort of a bet that they had going with Blaine the Mono. Blaine's the insane program on the train who wants to kill himself in a fiery crash, and he's kind of struck up a bargain with the Cadet in that if they can pose a riddle that he cannot solve, he'll drop them off and let them live, and if they can't come up with one that'll stump them, he'll crash and kill all of them along with himself. And Eddie's defeat of uh, Blaine is just really hilarious. Like, he tells all of these really stupid, random, like, toilet humor kind of jokes, and just winds up frying Blaine's circuits for the illogical uh, stuff that just exists within the jokes. And it's, it's really funny. Um, and then when we wind up in Kansas, Roland and the Cadet happen to come across the Kansas City from the Stand, which has been completely wiped out by the Captain Trips virus. Um, and this is where they camp out for the night, and we get a large portion of Roland's past and what makes him tick in the way that he does. Um, I'm going to say that the backstory is really, really well written. It's all kinds of effed up, but it's really well written. Um, we get the past of Roland's involvement with a young girl named Susan Delgado, and this is some really well written teenage romance. It's got kind of a Shakespearean twist to it, and it takes on sort of a tragedy, but it's really well done. And the characters are so richly developed and engrossing in this book that even for the bad guys, I find myself getting deeply rooted and kind of on edge about what happened to them the first time that I read this. Um, we get two of Roland's childhood companions in this who go to the village of Megis or Megis to investigate Farson's involvement with that village and what he's using it as a cover for. Elaine is kind of a stale character to me. He's not really explored all that much, but Cuthbert is really well written. He's a child version of Eddie, and he's just so much more funnier than Eddie. I wish that there had been a few more flashback scenes that included him in it besides the one in this and one back in the Gunslinger. Um, the deal with also the piece of Maryland's Rainbow, which is I can't remember what it's called, but they just call it the pink one. It's a little glass orb, which is sort of like a Palantir from the Lord of the Rings, and there's this old witch woman named Rhea the Coos who is using it to spy in on everyone, and she eventually is driven mad by it and sort of becomes the rioter of the town, or the calling force of the riot in the town to cause Susan's death much later on in the story. Um, We also get backdrop into the main villain of this piece, who is Eldred Jonas, a failed gunslinger and the leader of the Big Coffin Hunters, who are like the mercenaries in this. Again, this is carrying very much of the Lord of the Rings, and it seems to stand out much more with that in here. We also get a little bit of Romeo and Juliet going on, and for the present time of the story with Roland and the Quartet, there's a large inspirational piece from The Wizard of Oz. Basically, this is pretty much King saying Wizard of Oz was the inspiration for a lot of the story, and he uses that well in this book. He's not copying anything. He says, I am taking this and I'm making it my own from the way that he writes it. And if you read it, you're going to see that he makes it very much his own. It's very well done. Now, this is the final book of the series to where I'm going to say that it's really great. Unfortunately, at least in the Tower mythos, consider the first 4 Dark Tower books like the first 4 Metallica albums: Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Injustice for All. Injustice for All is the best of the early Metallica albums to me, and that is what Wizard and Glass is for these first 4 Dark Tower books. Very well done. Unfortunately, the series will kind of go downhill. Now, I still have this Betweener book to review, but I'm going to be a little bit of a separatist on it, as I consider it kind of falling out of the Tower mythos a little bit just because of the lateness of when it was written, but I'll get to that shortly. Overall, the book is really, really engrossing, and you really get the feeling for Roland's character in this book, and especially for what he's manipulated into doing towards the end of the flashback, too, which really tells you why he kind of had part of him die at such a young age. So, overall, this is a really well-written book. It is my favorite of the Dark Tower series. The high point of it, the biggest stride that it's going to take, and is pretty much one of my favorite books, period. So, if you made it through the first 3 books, you're definitely in for a hell of a ride with this one. Do check it out.